Hey, Husker fans, welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson of HuskerBigRed.com, and with me, as always, my co-host Danny Gillette of thegreatcornholio.org, and we're here to review some recruiting fireworks for the Cornhuskers. We talked about it last week, how there, might be some stuff happening this week, and we've got two commitments since our last episode here, so we're going to talk about that. We've got a bunch of movement in the recruiting prediction machine, a bunch of expert projections for Nebraska. Malachi Coleman's visiting Colorado. There's transfer portal. Just you said it, Danny, off air. There's just so much going on. Your head's spinning. But how you doing this Wednesday morning?
Well, after we recorded the episode on Monday, recruiting fireworks immediately happened because who would want the content when it actually happens? Am I right? So hopefully by the time we're done today, there'll be more fireworks because that's just the way things have seemed to have gone. I'm not complaining, but man, I wish they would save these for at least during the show so we could have some breaking news.
Yeah, it's the commitments are going to come fast and furious. And Nebraska got a couple on Monday. I'm going to butcher the name here, but Sincere Safulia is what I'm going to go with. Apologize. I'm sure that's totally pronounced wrong, but 3-star cornerback out of the IMG Academy, which I think is probably a positive sign with Cameron Leonard, a defensive end who's also been projected to Nebraska, but said he's going to be taking a visit this weekend. And so it sounds like Nebraska's at least in the top 2, but has a good shot there. And then also on Monday, Kai Wallen, the edge rusher. He's a JUCO from American River Community College out in California. He's the number 38 junior college prospect, according to 24/7 Sports. 6'6", 200, big, tall guy. And that was one where, he kind of talked about the Matt Rule, in the new defensive system and how it might not be, just a 3-3-5, because they're talking about him kind of being a stand-up outside linebacker. And, that's what I've said. You need to be multiple. You need to be able to play defense in every step of the way, 3-4, 4-3, whatever, it all looks different. But I like, some of these moves. And then what are your thoughts on the latest commitments for Nebraska?
I really like it because I think, like you said, the IMG connection with Safua and Cam Lenhart, and let's just say no bad players, quote unquote, go to IMG. So that's always a positive for me. He's a very good corner. He attacks. He has good instincts. And, I think that's the type of corner you need in a 3-3-5. I know you can, like you said, mix the 3-3-5 up, but at its core, you need to have good defensive backs. And Safula is one of those. And then Wallen is really interesting to me. He's a good edge rusher in some of the highlights that I watched. He's a little bit slow in terms of speed, but he has the ability to just absolutely take advantage of his man and get in the backfield quickly. I mean, you said it, 6'6", 245 pounds. I mean, it's just crazy. It was crazy watching him on his highlight tape because he was quite literally a man among boys. So I'm very happy with that commitment. And, I think there's some real potential for both Safula and Wallen to really be able to make an impact. And, I like the fact that a lot of these kids that we've seen commit over the past couple of days, they're not known yet. They're not known yet, and yet they have a lot of talent. Because if you just think about it, a lot of these kids go under-recruited in the state of Texas because the state's so big with so many kids. So I like the fact that, they're really kind of doing their homework, meaning the coaching staff, and landing these commitments. Obviously, we'll have to see how it plays out on the field, but I'm not getting the sense that they're just throwing out offers willy-nilly, kind of like Scott Frost used to do. I'm getting the sense that there is a plan here.
Yeah, there definitely is a plan, and Matt Rule has just been, a relentless recruiter. It's been really impressive to watch, and I think, he's going to continue to be a great salesman, for this program, and just a great CEO. Which, so like right now, I think if I'm Trev Alberts, I'm just tickled to death at what I've got so far in Matt Rule, because he's working hard, and he's just been a great, kind of ambassador for the program right now. I know he got everybody fired up at the basketball game last week, and he makes a lot of just really smart moves. He was down there visiting Princewell and in Texas, and he stopped at his mom's restaurant. I mean, it's just little things like that. He's making all the right moves, and so it's smart. But I think defensively, back to Kai Wallen and this 3-3-5 is, those edge players need to be big. They have to be big and tough and physical, because they have to set the edge. They're going to be essential, in the run game part of it. So not only do those guys have to be, pass rushers, but they got to be able to, really establish the edge there. And so I think, that's a guy in Kai Wallen who can potentially do that. And as a junior college player, I mean, people talk about the transfer portal all the time, but, the junior college ranks are another area where you can add, solid players. He's the number 5th ranked edge in all of the JUCO ranks for 2023. So, I think that's a good move and adds some depth to the position. And we saw Jamari Butler come back, probably going to be an edge. Garrett Nelson obviously is still, looming out there, and that's going to be an interesting decision. He could still enter the transfer portal. He could head to the NFL draft. But hopefully, he comes back, because he would be the perfect kind of player. That's one thing he did really well, I thought, last year. He came on as a pass rusher, but he did a nice job setting the edge too.
He was one of the only players that really stood out on the defense all season consistently. So I'm hoping he comes back. And, I'm going to be really interested to see how this defense kind of works. But, with the commitments that we've had so far and, kind of the defensive style, I'm definitely encouraged. And, I think there'll be more commitments to come. I mean, we've already seen some predictions from On3 experts. So we'll see.
Yeah, there's been in total, I wrote about this yesterday at HuskerBigRed.com, breaking it all down. But with some new expert projections today, there's been 12 transfers, JUCOs, and recruits total that have been projected to Nebraska. And there's, some pretty big names in there. Malachi Coleman was one of those. He did get a projection from, Sean Callahan to Nebraska. That was before this news came out about his visit. I don't know, with the Malachi Coleman visit to Colorado, I'm not panicking about it yet. We'll see how it goes. I think that, Deion Sanders, look, he's a great recruiter, but, Nebraska, I think, does have a lot of built-in advantages there. So we'll see what happens. I would be surprised if he, took a visit there and signed early. So, I think Nebraska's trying to get him to sign early. I think that Nebraska probably has the best chance. But if he puts it off to the late period, then, all bets are off. So it's basically a whole new ball game at that point. So we'll see what happens. But there's a lot of guys that could commit. Jalen Lloyd has, an announcement set for this week on Saturday. So I would expect him to go to Nebraska. And there's a bunch of visitors coming this week that, I would expect some commitments. I mean, we're 1 week away from National Signing Day, early National Signing Day. So these guys are, they're going to be making decisions. There's going to be a lot of commitments and a lot of moves coming in the next week. So just get prepared for that.
And that's the crazy part of all of this, right? Is that National Signing Day is, less than a week away. And Matt Rule has added so many kids of his own to the class, as well as retaining a bunch from the previous regime. So hats off to him for sure. He's definitely been working. And like I said before, the 2023 class, I like the fact that he's getting so many kids in, but the real indicator to me will be the 2024 class, when he has more time to establish those connections with the schools he wants to, and he has a full year under his belt. And hey, if we start winning, or at least make it to a bowl game, that 2024 class might look really good.
Yeah, but I do think, I mean, I agree with you for sure. That sets up, where he could get Nebraska. I think if Nebraska can start winning, I definitely think it can get itself into the top 15 nationally recruiting, where, and basically what you need to do is have about 50% of your class be, blue chips, 4 or 5 star recruits. So if you sign 20 recruits, you want 10 of them to be 4 stars. I think that's a realistic goal for Nebraska. I really do, especially under Matt Rule, in the way that he's recruited. But I mean, if you look at this class, now let's, if they're able to get Malachi Coleman, that would obviously be a huge get. But, Princewell Umamalian's a 4 star. Cameron Leonard's a 4 star. Ramir Stewart is, we talked about him on Monday and his lengthy offer sheet. He's a top 500 guy. So, I mean, those are all really solid pickups. And so, even if this class doesn't, wow people, rankings wise and numbers wise, I think that he's really adding some solid pieces. And there's, some, looking at today, kind of some of the new expert projections, Andrew Metzger was a 3-star tight end committed to Colorado. He visited Nebraska over the weekend and is now, looking at, being projected to Nebraska from Sean Callahan and Brian Munson, the recruiting reporter over there at Husker Online, has projected a flip from Kyron Jones to flip from North Carolina State, the running back, over to Nebraska. And he, is another kid. He's ranked 734. So, I mean, not super crazy high, but, you're adding solid talent. And no matter what people want to say, I mean, the transfer portal is huge, but you still have to get it done in high school recruiting. You have to build a foundation. And I think that, Matt Rule's trying to do that. And obviously next year he's going to have a much better chance at doing that. But, I've still been impressed. And I think he's done a really great job, especially with the in-state kids. And, if you look at who could be the next to commit, I think that some of those in-state guys could be it. And so I'll throw that question over to you, Danny. I know we have Jalen Lloyd on Saturday, so maybe you could throw out a few different guys. But who do you think are going to be the next few commitments for Nebraska football?
Honestly, I was going to say Lloyd, and then Cameron Lenhart, and then I'm still kind of holding out hope for Elijah Judy. I know he's got some visits this week. I know, his visit sheet is kind of piling up, but I'd say maybe Cameron Lenhart and Jalen Lloyd would be my two big ones. I think the addition of Safula, the IMG connection that you mentioned, will help with that. And if we could land even two more this weekend, I'd be very happy, especially if we close the deal on Lenhart, because I think, I was kind of disappointed when he decommitted. And I think he would add, a type of playmaking ability on the defensive line that, quite frankly, we haven't had in I don't know how long, because last year we certainly didn't get it. We got it in spurts, but adding a guy like Lenhart to me is crucial for the direction of this defense in particular, especially when you consider that a lot of it, I'm not going to say a lot of it, but a good amount of it is based on the defensive backs. Like you mentioned earlier with Wallen, you kind of need those impact players on the line to kind of get to the quarterback quickly to help complement the defense well.
Yeah, and I think Lenhart would be a good fit, in terms of this new scheme. He's more of a defensive end, I guess what you would say, than an edge. So, I mean, he's kind of used to playing with his hand in the ground. And so I feel like he's a little bit bigger body, would make a lot of sense. Yeah, he talked about, he's going to visit somewhere this weekend. I haven't heard where that is. And then he's going to make a decision. So I think he'll have a commitment probably early next week, maybe on signing day even. That would be kind of interesting. But yeah, Jalen Lloyd, I think, is definitely going to pick Nebraska on Saturday. I think Tristan Alvano is a guy I think is going to be picking Nebraska fairly soon. And I think another guy who could commit maybe this weekend or very soon after is Mason Goldman, the three-star offensive lineman from Gretna, is going to be visiting this weekend, is his official visit. And he's kind of, been projected to Nebraska by some. He's gotten even more projection. So those three, those three in-state kids, I would be surprised if at least a couple of them weren't committed by the end of the week. But it's with signing day and everything. Some of the kids may want to push their date up, and the other thing is other schools are frantically kind of making pushes for kids too. So you might have some other schools trying to get in the mix with some of these guys at the last second, and it's always interesting. It's never dull in the days leading up to signing day.
And you know what? It was just a couple years ago, and I say a couple because I'm old, and that means like 10 years ago. But February used to be the big day. You used to wake up as a fan, turn on the TV, look at the war rooms, so to speak, and see the coaches taking the telephone calls on February and opening all the envelopes and sending out or trying to finalize the deal with some commits. Now it's all pushed up to December, and I think that's really kind of accelerated, obviously getting players to commit for classes, and it's helped the new recruits kind of get more adjusted to the campus. So it's kind of crazy how the signing day dynamic has completely flipped from February to December.
Yeah, for sure. And it is interesting that there is still the signing day in February. It's called the late signing period. I think
almost seems like an afterthought now.
Yeah,
in some cases.
is. It is. There's still really good players available in it, and the thing about it is, you saw a lot of the programs that, hired new head coaches last year, USC, LSU, Miami, they were all really active in that, Texas, who had Sark Finn his second year. So I would expect Nebraska to be really active in the late signing period, because there's going to be guys that, they're late risers, that are, they were maybe committed to, a group of 5 school that have gotten some more offers and are now going to reopen their recruitment. There's not a ton of talent. You're not going to see some of the really, really high profile players will push their signing back, but Nebraska's not in the mix for any of them. So, it's, you really have to pick and choose, but if you're trying to go fill some spots, it's not a bad way to do it. And I would expect Nebraska to, try to target a few guys for that late signing period.
Yeah, that's true. It really benefits kind of the, like you said, programs with new coaching hires, because it allows them to still kind of get into their groove, so to speak, get comfortable with the program, and kind of finalize those deals on the actual signing day. But I like the base that Matt Rule has for 2023 right now. There's no doubt, like you said, he has tremendous energy, and he seems really invested in trying to make this program better. It's one thing to just say it like he did at the press conference that had me all fired up, but he's showing it. I don't know if he sleeps, but like I said on Monday, I want Matt Rule's caffeine plan, because he's making me feel so lazy as I can barely get out of bed to do the show.
Yeah, he's done a great job, and he, Tommy Frazier was at on campus, I believe, yesterday or the day before, and he met Trev, and he went to again and met some coaches, but he ended up meeting Marcus Satterfield because Matt Rule was out recruiting, and he's been in Texas, he was in Pennsylvania yesterday, I'm assuming, to visit Ramir Stewart, which I think is going to be he's a guy too, I think, this weekend that has a strong chance to commit, outside of the non-Nebraska guys. He's a Philly guy. Rule has connections there, so I feel like that's a done deal at this point, and that would be huge. And he's a guy.
Barthel probably does too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think that Stewart's a guy that could play early. He's a guy that he fits that bigger role at safety. And but I don't know, the thing about Nebraska in the defense is everybody wants to act like the defense is terrible and stuff like that, but really it wasn't. It wasn't down the stretch. Once Bill Bush took over, it was a solid defense. I mean, straight up, almost every outside of the Purdue game, really, the defense put Nebraska in a position to win almost every single game, and most of the time it was just a matter of them wearing down because the offense couldn't get a first down. I mean, Nebraska went through a stretch of 3 or 4 games where it was like historically bad. I think they had like 2 or 3 games where they didn't get 10 first downs. So, and then the thing is they've lost O'Shawn Mathis and, Ernest Hausman, but, Nick Heinrich is still technically a returning starter. Luke Reimer, I know they're looking for some other guys to kind of, replace Hausman, but
Nelson, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully Nelson's back, but like Ty Robinson, is going to be back. All your second, Quentin Newsome, all your safeties. Yeah. All those guys were just sophomores. So, all the secondary is back. I'm totally blanking on the freshman corner. Hartzog, Malcolm Hartzog, so I mean, they've got the entire secondary back. They've got their 2 linebackers. If Nelson comes back, I mean, there's going to be some new pieces added in there, but I don't think the defense is that far away, especially when you have, a smart person coaching it. And I think, so I like some of the moves that they've made. I feel like the defense is closer to being, pretty solid. I mean, a pretty solid defense than people are kind of giving it credit for.
Well, when you're out there for 755 snaps on defense, and the offense has a drive that takes 3 plays, 10 seconds off the clock, you're going to be exhausted. And I think that's what made the defense look kind of bad in these last couple games, but it's just because they were worn down. And some of it can be pointed towards conditioning, and I think that was a big issue, but also just the play calling was so bad. We barely ran the football. We barely took time off the clock. I mean, were there things that need to be addressed in the conditioning department? Yeah, absolutely. But the offense was doing 0 favors. Somebody tweeted at me the other day that if Mark Whipple had a 300-page playbook, 299 pages of them were passing plays. So, I mean, I'm excited to see what this defense can do. And I don't think, quick drives just because we passed the football are going to be a problem under Matt Rule. I really don't. I think we're going to make an effort to run the ball. Otherwise, why would EJ Barthel be here? I mean, that's what he does.
Yep, yeah, he runs the ball really well, and the running game tends to improve, when he arrives anywhere, and that's Matt Rule has always been a guy that likes to run the football. So, um, you know, they got to upgrade the offensive line, and speaking of that, it looks like they are going to add some guys there on the offensive line. Ben Scott, is a 6'5" offensive lineman who started at tackle, who started at guard, or it started at center at Arizona State. And he took a visit this last weekend, and he's being projected to the Huskers now, getting some expert picks. So, that would be, a big pickup. I know everybody wants a Johnny Cornelius, but every single team in college football wants a Johnny Cornelius. So, I wouldn't hold my breath on that one, but Nebraska did get the first visit. So, I mean, there's going to be a big time opportunity here. But if you could add even just those two guys, if you added Scott and Cornelius, I mean, this offensive line would look a hell of a lot better day one than it did, last season.
And then, not that this is an addition, but the departure of Kevin Williams just signifies, another recruiting miss by the previous staff at Nebraska. And, I think it just speaks to how badly we need help on the offensive line. I would love Cornelius. I'm not holding my breath. He's really good. Like you said, other teams have wanted him, but if we can get at least Scott in here, that would at least give me something to say, okay, we're trying to improve the line. And I know we are, but I just want to land some of these guys instead of talking about them. Because quite frankly, last year's line, just scared me. I saw Casey retweet, I think it was Cornelius's tweet. He's probably messaging him saying, help me, please, so I can come back safely. But no, in all seriousness, I think whoever we get on the line will be a help, and hopefully we can get Scott and maybe Cornelius. And I trust this coaching staff to do a better job on the line than in previous staffs, because there's a lot of missed development and there's a lot of misses on recruiting. So, we can't quite honestly get much worse.
Yeah, and Scott, I like the fact that he started, almost 30 games out there at Arizona State and been a really quality player. He's got ties to Nebraska. He has some ties to the Rayolas. So, transfers, they do things. It's a little bit different of a recruiting process, but they've got obviously a new coaching staff there. But he would be a big time addition, and Nebraska needs just a couple of guys like that who have been proven starters at other schools, and for whatever reason are now hitting the transfer portal. So hopefully that they need some help at tackle still. That is for sure. And the JUCO ranks could be another source too of talent there. So we'll have to see kind of how things continue to progress for Nebraska. But I really think you're going to see a hardcore focus on these recruits up to early signing day, and then you'll start to see some more things happen too with the transfer portal kind of arriving after that window. But it's tough though, because everybody needs offensive line help, and it's there's quarterbacks and there's offensive line, and those guys tend to go really quick. But I think the offensive line go even quicker, because the ones that can really help you, and same with the defensive line, they're few and far between in the portal. They just really don't make it there often. And that's why Cornelius's offer sheet blew up. I mean, he obviously is ranked as the number one offensive lineman in the country, but there isn't a team. I mean, even the really good teams, I mean, they're usually missing at least, one offensive lineman or whatever. So almost every team in the country could use a starter or quality backup. And that's why it is so hard to kind of upgrade that depth. But I like I would love the addition of Scott. That would be huge.
Yeah, and it would give Nebraska something to work with, a veteran piece for spring practices. I know a lot of spring practices, they don't necessarily get into the nitty gritty stuff, but getting a lineman that's a veteran, that's, familiar with big time college football, that can play at a high level is important, because although, August camp is when things really get started, establishing that sort of baseline during spring ball is important. So then you can pick up where you left off come late summer, early fall.
Yeah, and I mean, talking about the transfer portal, there isn't hasn't been a ton of transfer portal news the last couple of days. I mean, there is still quite a bit. You mentioned Elijah Judy, and he's actually been projected to Nebraska by a few different guys. So I think, things are picking up there. But one interesting visit, Chief Borders, 6'5" edge from Florida, is going to be taking a visit this weekend. And I think he would be huge. I mean, he's a freak athlete. And he would be a guy that I think would fit this defense just absolutely perfectly as someone who could stand up. He could put his hand in the ground. Just a big, fast, physical player out of the transferred from Florida. But other than that, there hasn't been any kind of new commitments. There is some interesting news. Nebraska is been kind of in contact with Malik Hornsby, the Arkansas quarterback that's in the transfer portal, and I wrote about him yesterday at HuskerBigRed.com. But I think he would really be an interesting recruit for Nebraska. He's a sub 11 second 100-meter guy, so he's a really good athlete, and he could probably play some other positions. He ran the football quite a bit. He's only got 39 career pass attempts, but coming out of high school, he drew comparisons to RG3, and he's ranked number 9 right now among quarterbacks in the 24/7 transfer portal. So I don't know, Matt. Evan Cooper was his primary recruiter at Baylor, and there was a lot of indications that he could have wound up at Baylor if Rule didn't go to the NFL and he went to Arkansas. So I think he would be a really interesting fit because he's got 2 years of eligibility left, I believe, maybe 3, but at least 2. And he's a guy that could help at multiple positions. So maybe he could play receiver. So, if Casey Thompson was back and healthy, he could play some receiver, some Wildcat quarterback, and maybe he could take over the quarterback job next year. Or he could spend all spring, playing the position and getting some reps, getting some development. And then maybe, he could try to push Casey for the job. And if he doesn't get it, like I said, he could contribute because Nebraska needs receiver help. They need speed. They need guys because, they lost Trey Palmer. And if they don't get Malachi Coleman, they're definitely going to need to fill that gap, I think.
Hornsby sounds and basically is a project player in the best sense of the word. You're not sure where he fits. He is a quarterback. He is a good quarterback, but he also has that athleticism to kind of make you say, oh, well, he could fit here or he could fit here. It's a good type of project, not the awful type of project where you kind of don't see, quite frankly, any hope for the kid. This is the good type of project. And, I think, Rule wants speed, and Hornsby certainly has it. And, I think he would be a good insurance policy if Casey doesn't return. If he does return, then, again, that speed would be helpful at wide receiver. Maybe a couple of, red zone packages could be used at times. Because the thing about Casey, and I'm not sure, maybe I'll get your thoughts on this, is he a good out of the pocket runner? Because he didn't do that a lot last year, but I'm wondering if that was more so because of Whipple's offense.
Yeah, he's never been a runner. That's just not what he does. He's more of a pocket passer. So I don't really see him. I mean, he ran a little bit more at the end of the season. I think just because his arm was hurt, but I don't think he's ever going to be. You're never going to really call plays for him to run the football. I just don't think that's what he does or wants to do. So that's why he's not a great fit for the Rule system. But we'll see. I mean, yeah, it's really been interesting that it's been kind of quiet on that front. I know he's having surgery or whatever, and it would be nice to have a veteran like him, kind of take over the reins. Not that Jeff Sims or somebody couldn't come in and do that, but those are the two quarterbacks Nebraska's talking to right now, Jeff Sims and Hornsby. And so it'd be interesting to see if they land one of those two guys. But Hornsby, he talked about it and he said he thinks he could get to the NFL and as a wide receiver, but he would like to try the quarterback is kind of his first position. So that's where I kind of got to thinking. I wonder if Nebraska could say, hey, like we can come in here and give you a chance to compete for the quarterback job, and you can basically run the show this spring. You and some of the the leftover guys, and try to develop your skills. And then, you can have a competition. And if you don't get it, then maybe we'll look at receiver or whatever, and you'll still have a chance once Casey's gone. So I don't know. Just a thought that I had formulating in my head. But, until they get an announcement from Casey Thompson one way or another, I think it's going to be, kind of difficult to get a quarterback here until they have a firm idea.
Who Hornsby reminds me a lot of? Malcolm Perry. Remember the Navy quarterback that turned into a wide receiver in the NFL? Perry had great legs, and he also had a great arm. And then he ended up, because of his speed, becoming a wide receiver in the NFL. He was kind of a tweener in terms of positions. He wasn't really sure where he was going to fit, but he ended up moving over to wide receiver, and that's what Hornsby kind of reminds me of. But the thing with Casey to me is, and I'm sure the coaching staff has a better idea of this than we do. Like, if we're gonna ride with Casey, then you know I kind of want to just hear him say something like he's coming back, so that way once spring practices hit, summer practices hit, then we can kind of immediately get going. But if he's not sure about coming back, then we need to get a transfer quarterback right away. So I'm not sure really what the thinking is there, but I am anxious for an announcement either way. Does he owe it to us? Not necessarily, but an announcement would at least comfort me a little bit, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, yeah, he'll make an announcement one way or the other, and maybe the staff knows right now, and they just haven't announced it, or
Right.
they're. But either way, I think Nebraska they need to find a transfer portal quarterback, because I don't think that. I mean, yeah, look, maybe Chuba Purdy and maybe Logan Smothers can develop and but they need to face some competition, because last year they played like, frankly, pot garbage. They were terrible. I mean, look at the stats.
No,
They
you're right.
couldn't, they couldn't score.
You're right.
They couldn't get a first down. I mean, they could not get a first down. Neither of them looked like a college quarterback. So play better, but I would definitely not trust those guys to,
No.
you need more depth. You need two quarterbacks to play. I mean, almost every college football team. So, I mean, that's, you rarely see teams making it, with one quarterback. And so I think that's why, whether it's Hornsby or somebody else that's, a freshman or sophomore, somebody kind of like Chuba Purdy, but I think they need to get somebody in there just to compete, for that backup job.
Well, again, I asked the question, where is Heinrich Harburg and where is Richard Torres? Because we've heard nothing about them, and that makes me wonder where they are in terms of their development. Are they kind of, I don't want to say bust, but are they not what we expected them to be? Is that another recruiting miss? I mean, there are names in the quarterback room. We just haven't heard about them at all. I mean, Torres, I thought he had a good arm, and he does have a good arm. Let's not try to discredit him here, but we just haven't heard anything about either Harburg or Torres, and that makes me worried as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was, the redshirt freshman walk-on from Hastings passed those two guys up on the depth chart. So I think that was a little concerning, so we'll see. I mean, it'll be interesting. There might be a situation where they are here in the spring and then they decide, hey, I'm never going to play here, and decide to transfer. I don't know. I've heard that Rule likes Harburg, and look, they both have talent. And I will say this, I don't think that they were ever getting any development, especially Harburg. He's been here for more than 1 year, so we know he's got some of the absolute worst quarterback coaching money could buy. And
Verduzco and Whipple, I didn't even think of that, but Harburg and Smothers.
So
I'm surprised Smothers hasn't transferred already, to be honest with you. I don't know if I would have stuck it out this long, but
yeah, but the thing is too is, maybe he's being smart and thinking that there's not a surefire place for him because where's he going to go? I mean, I don't see. I mean, he unless he wants to go, if he really wants to play. I mean, I could see him playing in the FCS. He'd probably be great at Northern Iowa, and I don't mean that disparagingly. I mean, there's just the FCS is really quality football, but I really don't know if he. Like, I don't even know if Smothers is a group of 5 starting quarterback, to be honest with you. I mean, potentially, but
that's the thing. This quarterback room is such a mess right now that we don't even know where the room stands in terms of development and evaluation. And I don't put that all on the players. I put that on Mario Verduzco, Mark Whipple. Same reason I put lack of development on the offensive line on Greg Austin. I mean, I don't envy the position that Donovan Raiola is in, and I don't envy the position of having to try to fix the quarterback room, because both positions were so badly undercoached that it's hard to, turn around things in 1 year. And there's a lot of mess that needs to be cleaned up. No thanks to the previous coaching staff.
Yeah, no, yeah, it definitely is. That's for sure. And it would be nice if Casey would come back and, Garrett Nelson. I mean, one thing I've been encouraged about, we haven't heard anything about like AJ Allen. So, I feel like he hopefully is going to stick around with EJ Barthel. We haven't
Anthony
heard
Grant either.
anything. Yeah, we haven't heard anything about Anthony Grant. So I'm going to take no news as good news, I guess,
Yeah,
on that front for
yeah.
now. That could be a mistake. You never know. These guys could enter the portal at any time. So, but yeah, I would think with Grant and some of those guys, they would have some NIL deals in place for next season, and he could definitely be 1,000-yard rusher. And I mean, you look at Anthony Grant and AJ Allen behind like a legitimate offensive line. I mean that's a promising thought for
Money.
Nebraska football fans. Yeah,
That's money right there. But yeah,
and
I'm
then
surprised. Go ahead.
well, then I was just thinking you bring Thompson back, and then you've got Marcus Washington. You've got some talented receivers out there. You need to add a couple more in the portal, but I feel like honestly, I feel like that this team has the makings of a winning team next year. With Matt Rule leading the way.
Yeah, no, I agree. And quite honestly, in my personal opinion, if I was Allen and Grant, I would strongly consider coming back because I didn't get enough tape to be able to transfer to another school, in my opinion. Not because we were bad, but because they didn't run the football. So, I would really want. I think Grant and Allen behind a good offensive line, like you said, oof, I think that would be really really good. I mean, you saw what they were able to do behind a very poor offensive line with a coordinator that didn't run the football. Imagine if they just stuck to pounding the rock. I mean, we're looking at some postseason awards in their future, I think.
And Emmett Johnson and right here Johnson still hasn't transferred, and I liked him, so it wouldn't hurt my feelings if he actually was back and had a legitimate role next year in some way. So we'll see a lot going on though, and it's going to continue that way. So make sure that you guys are keeping up with the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe, hit like, get into the comments section, let us know your thoughts. Make sure you're checking out thegreatcornholio.org. I know he's got a lot of great coverage over there as well. So yeah, we'll start wrapping things up here, but what are your final thoughts here, Danny, our midweek episode, everything that's going on with Nebraska football?
If only the regular seasons were as exciting as the off seasons. That's my final thoughts right there. I mean, we've had news flying everywhere, predictions and names, and I love it. And it just shows that the coaching staff is working really hard, and they're more than just a press conference, which is not something we could say about previous regimes. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah, it has been exciting. That's for sure. It's not a dull moment. The transfer portal has made, the college football offseason feel a lot like the NFL offseason with recruiting and, college football kind of free agency out there. So it's been fun. I'm hoping that before we, are back here, I'm hoping on Friday morning when we come back, we'll have some commitments to talk about. But yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of fireworks, in the next few days. There's going to be some good news. There might be some bad news, but overall, I think the trend with Nebraska football recruiting is going up, and I like what Matt Rule's doing. So, make sure you stick with us here at the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. We're going to have all your, news and analysis and our unfiltered opinions. So hit that subscribe button. And as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.